Welcome to today's deep dive. You've brought us excerpts from Melody Beattie's The New Codependency, and wow, this one is really resonating with me. I'm excited to dig in. Like we always say, we like to go beyond just surface level definitions on this show, and with Beattie. Well, her own story is really intertwined with her work, isn't it?
It really is. And I think that's what makes her writing so powerful. It's relatable. She doesn't shy away from her own struggles, and that makes her insights all the more impactful.
Right. It's like she's right there with you, you
Hmm.
know? And her story, well, it's not your average biography. I mean, she dreamt of being a writer, a small town girl, all that. But behind the scenes, family life was tough. Her mother struggled with alcohol abuse.
Yeah, and you can see how those early experiences might shape someone's worldview, right? The need to control, to fix things. It often comes from a place of trying to manage chaos, especially in childhood.
It makes sense. And Beattie's younger years, definitely a lot of chaos. She rebelled, got into some serious trouble with addiction. We're talking legal trouble,
Yeah.
even ended up on those anti-drug posters.
Wow. And that just makes her journey even more remarkable, don't you think? To go from being, in a way, a symbol of the problem to becoming a leading voice in the solution.
It really is incredible. Talk about turning your life around. So picture this. She's at the addiction treatment center, feeling, I imagine, pretty defeated. And then something shifts. Beattie describes laying on the grass, and suddenly the world just seems beautiful. It's this moment of clarity, this realization that she can
But
change.
that aha moment, right? The one that so many people searching for a way out of their struggles, they crave that spark of awareness, like the light at the end of the tunnel.
And she grabs hold of that spark with everything she's got. She throws herself into recovery, comes out stronger, starts working at the treatment center to help others. She gets married, has kids. And for a while, it seems like she's finally living that peaceful life she always wanted.
It seems like it, yes. But as we so often see, life has other plans.
It does, doesn't it? And in Beattie's case, it turns out her husband is struggling with alcoholism, hiding it for years. And this is where those old patterns, those ingrained responses, they resurface.
Because when we haven't fully processed those early experiences, haven't developed healthier coping mechanisms, it's easy to fall back on what we know, even if it's not serving us anymore.
And for Beattie, what she knew was control. So she tries to manage his drinking, fix him, just like she might have tried to fix things in her family growing up.
It's almost like an unconscious attempt to rewrite her own history. By controlling his present, she's trying to gain control over a past that still haunts her.
And here's where things get really interesting. Remember, she worked at a treatment center, right? Well, she ends up back there, but this time it's for a support group, not for her own addiction, but for loved ones of addicts.
Wow. Talk about a full circle moment. And it was a pivotal moment for her understanding of codependency.
Absolutely, because it's in that support group that she has this profound realization. Her husband's alcoholism isn't just his problem. Her helping, her controlling, is part of the equation. It's like she's unconsciously playing a role in the very thing she's desperately trying to fix.
Wow. So we've talked about Beattie's journey, and it's intense, but what I'm really grappling with here is, like, what exactly is codependency? I mean, we all know someone who's maybe a little too invested in someone else's problems, right? But where's that line? When does it cross over?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And it's not always so cut and dry. Beattie, she describes it as being influenced by another person's behavior and obsessed with controlling it, which is a good starting point. But she
Yeah.
goes on, right? She says it's the motivation behind those actions that really gets at the heart of codependency.
So it's deeper than just, oh, I want to help. It's what's going on under that desire to help. Exactly. And often those motivations, they stem from a place of low self-worth. Imagine feeling empty without a clear sense of purpose. It's easy to see how someone in that place might try to find validation, a sense of identity, through controlling or fixing someone else because they haven't quite figured out how to do that for themselves.
It's almost like they're trying to fill their own void with someone else's needs.
Yeah.
Right, and that control. It's tricky because it often disguises itself as love, doesn't it? There was that part in the book about the woman who couldn't let go of her ex, even though it was clearly an unhealthy relationship. And the way she described it, she felt needed when she was caring for him, even if it was at her own expense.
Classic example of how codependency can really blur those lines between genuine care and this, well, need to be needed. It creates this cycle, this confusion, where unhealthy attachments and self-sacrifice get mistaken for love.
So it's not even necessarily that the other person's behavior is bad per se. It's more about why the codependent person is choosing to stay, what need it's fulfilling for them.
That's a really important distinction.
Mm.
And honestly, it's one of the things I find most compelling about BD's work. She doesn't demonize codependents
Mm.
because often they're incredibly caring, giving people. It's just that somewhere along the line, they've lost sight of their own worth in the process of trying to save someone else.
Their identity becomes so tangled up with the other person, with that dynamic, that they lose themselves a little bit, you know?
Exactly. And that can have really damaging effects, not just on the codependent person, but on the relationship itself. Because you can't truly connect with someone, can't build something healthy and sustainable if you're coming from a place of emptiness and a need to control.
It can feel kind of overwhelming, though, right? Like realizing you're stuck in this codependent cycle. Where do you even start to break free from something like that?
It is a process, definitely not a quick fix. But Beatty, she offers some really practical steps, drawing a lot from her own experience with addiction recovery. And really, it all starts with self-acceptance.
Makes sense. Got to acknowledge the issue before you can actually start to, de-do something about it.
Exactly. That first step is huge. Just honestly looking at those codependent tendencies, figuring out where they're coming from. That's crucial for moving forward. And it's not about beating yourself up, it's about self-awareness.
Okay, so we're becoming aware of those patterns, those almost automatic ways we react in certain situations. How do we actually start to shift them, though?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. BD talks a lot about the importance of setting boundaries.
Boundaries. Everyone's talking about boundaries these days. But what does that actually look like, in the context of codependency?
It's about identifying what you will and won't tolerate in your life. And then, the hard part, communicating those boundaries to the people around you.
So say I'm the one who always drops everything to help, to the point where it's burning me out. I need to figure out where my limit is and actually tell people this is too much.
Exactly. It could sound something as simple as, hey, I really care about you, want to support you, but I also have to take care of myself. Well, I can't always drop everything, but I'm happy to schedule a time to talk this through.
Wow, yeah. I can see how just hearing that, setting that boundary could be a game changer for someone who's always felt obligated to say yes. But what about when the other person doesn't react well? What happens when you set a boundary and they push back?
That's where consistent action comes in. It's not enough to just say the words. We got to back them up with how we behave. If we set a boundary but then constantly give in when someone pushes back, well, we're not really setting a boundary at all, are we?
So it's about changing our own behavior, not trying to control how others react.
Exactly. We can't control other people, only ourselves.
Yeah.
It's about honoring our own needs, even if it makes someone else temporarily uncomfortable.
This has been amazing. Really makes you think. I think the biggest takeaway here is that breaking free from codependency isn't about abandoning our loved ones. It's about showing up for them and ourselves in healthier ways,
Yeah.
building relationships that are more sustainable, more authentic.
Beautifully said. And it all circles back to that initial point, that self-acceptance, recognizing our own inherent worth. I love that Beatty quote, "We are not here to manage life, but to live it." Such a powerful reminder.
Isn't it? Makes you wonder if the people out there who are so busy pouring their energy into fixing everyone else, if they turn that same energy, that same commitment inwards. Imagine the amazing things they could accomplish. Something to think about.